Dear participants of the seminar on Science Meets Arts, Arts Meets Science. It's again a great pleasure for me to welcome you as President of the European Academy of Sciences and Arts. This time, unfortunately, I cannot participate in online presence, as I'm currently in Oxford at a conference. By the way, this Oxford conference is about symmetries in physics, also a topic between sciences and arts, which we dealt with extensively in this lecture series last year. Tonight, on the arts side, the first topic is ballet. Revisting ballet Hamlet in the age of digimodernism. I recently had the opportunity to experience the fantastic ballet Hamlet by John Neumeier in Hamburg. Ballet is a permanent feature of the Alma Mater Europaea of the European Academy in Slovenia. And I recently had the opportunity to attend a performance in Maribor myself. The Alma Mater Europaea is, by the way, an ideal umbrella organization of the European Academy to offer interdisciplinary courses in the various European countries. Since ancient times, dance has been a central form of expression in art. This builds a bridge to the second lecture this evening from archaeology. Archaeology applies technical and scientific methods to the early history of mankind, thus linking technology and the natural sciences with cultural studies. We are very eager today to learn more about archaeological prospection. So I greet you all from Oxford on Friday, that will be in Oxford, and wish you an exciting evening. Thank you.
Svebor Sečak is also our new member of the European Academy of Sciences and Arts since this spring. He is associate professor in an internationally acclaimed ballet artist, choreographer, and national ballet principal of the Croatian National Theatre in Zagreb. He is also currently works as the ballet coach. He is the dean of our Alma Mater Europaea Dance Academy in Ljubljana. Our president spoke about this Alma Mater Europaea Dance Academy, Slovenia, and the president of the Croatian Society of Professional Ballet Artists. He is the author of Bachelor Program for Ballet and the co-author of the Master Program of the Alma Mater Europaea Dance, and the co-author of the Bachelor Plan and Program of the Study of Dance Pedagogy at the Academy of Dramatic Art, University of Zagreb in Croatia, where he is also teaching ballet. Furthermore, he is the director and organizer of the international ballet competition Slovenska Prix, as well as the organizer and moderator of the dance section of Scientific International Alma Mater Europaea Dance Academy, all about people. And as a member, regularly participates at international congresses of CIT UNESCO. He publishes, edits, reviews articles for the conference preceding books and for other relevant journals and magazines. He is a recipient of many professional awards, prizes, and state orders for his contribution to culture due to his implementation of a holistic approach to ballet art in all of its segments: educational, academic, artistic, cultural, and social. So we don't wonder that he is with us instead of being with his friends and family, and for his birthday today. So thank you so much, Svebor, that you are coming to us. Please.
Thank you very much for your presentation and introduction, Violeta. I'm going immediately to share the screen since I need my 30 minutes. So just a second. I need this presentation. Do you see this presentation?
Yeah, we see.
Okay, so the title is Revisiting Ballet Hamlet in the Age of Digimodernism. It's about transformation of an archival recording of a neoclassical ballet Hamlet into a new artistic dance video, Hamlet Revisited. Since you presented me already, I will skip this first part and let's go to the introduction. As a lifelong ballet soloist and choreographer, my area of interest is the performing arts, primarily ballet and dance, and the dualism between the abstract and the narrative approach to ballet works. What connects this to my theater studies is a particular interest in canonical literature works used as subject matter for narrative ballets or dances. This interest is generated by my rich experience in choreographing and dancing leading ballet roles that originate in language-based plays, such as Peer Gynt, Don Quixote, Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and many others. Here you can see me as in leading male role in Ballet Giselle, romantic Ballet Giselle, as Count Adam Albrecht. This is Prince Siegfried, also a leading male role in Swan Lake, various productions. This is The Sleeping Beauty, Prince Desiree. Just as a short intro, this is me as young Paris in Romeo and Juliet, and 20 years later as Tybalt. This is me in Spartacus as Crassus. This is Peer Gynt by Edward Grieg, also various productions. This is Don Quixote. Just to have an idea. This is Caligula. And finally, this is Hamlet that I'm going to speak about today. Okay, after completing my education in Croatia as a dancer, I was trained at the Vaganova Academy in St. Petersburg, Russia. Later during my career, I worked with many Eastern and Western European classical and contemporary choreographers. I received my BA First Class Honours degree in dance education from the Royal Academy of Dance in London, UK, where after a holistic approach to ballet studies, my focus eventually started to narrow to ballet as theater art. Accordingly, this became the area of my graduate studies. So in 2010, I completed my MA Honors degree at University of New England with the research topic Staging Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet in the language of classical ballet. This additionally complemented my interest in theory and practice of the artistic and educational research. So I completed my PhD degree in 2015 with a thesis titled Shakespeare's Hamlet in Ballet, a neoclassical and contemporary postmodern approach. And this project is the result of my PhD research. Today, dance is studied from many analytical perspectives that surpass the fundamental dance methodologies, technical skills, and the linear dance history, but include anthropological, philosophical, semiotic, socio-political, feminist, and gender perspectives, as well as kinesiology, anatomy, and psychology in the context of safe practice. And in a wider sense, dance studies refer to the relation between education, research, organization, creation, production, and reflection. This project is a result of my own individual transformations from a principal dancer who choreographs the leading role for himself into a more self-reflective, mature artist as a result of aging, the social-political changes occurring in my working and living environment, and my academic achievements, which have exposed me to the latest philosophical and theoretical approaches. Its significance lies in establishing communication between neoclassical and postmodern approaches, resulting in a contemporary postmodern artistic work that elucidates the process in the artist's mind during the creative practice. It complements my artistic and scholarly work and is an extension built on my previous achievements implementing new comprehensions. I created an experimental dance video that is not just a documentary, but a separate work of art titled Hamlet Revisited that lasts approximately 60 minutes. It includes about 30 minutes of new choreographies blended with the earlier material. I worked with professional video technicians and dancers in professional working conditions that enabled the feasibility of the project. In the exegesis, I focus on the multimedia presentation of my ideas as a director and choreographer, including the creation, collation, and editing of my work and the work of my co-authors on the DVD from the discourse of a ballet artist and choreographer, not a professional filmmaker. This text is a distillation of the exegesis that is an integral part of my PhD in creative practice project and is complementary to the dance video titled Hamlet Revisited. It shows the transformation of a video recording of my own choreography of ballet Hamlet, which premiered at the Croatian National Theatre in Zagreb in 2004, into a contemporary postmodern dance video Hamlet Revisited, answering the research question, how to transform an archival recording of a neoclassical ballet performance into a new artistic dance video by implementing postmodern philosophical concepts. The goal of the project is to elucidate the transformation of Hamlet to Hamlet Revisited from a neoclassical choreographic approach to the recent postmodern approach that traverses into a transmodern dance video of an eclectic blend of styles and techniques in accordance with the paradigm of digimodernism. The postmodern paradigm of the 21st century has many names, such as metamodernism, transmodernism, which is in accordance with the integral theory of Ken Wilber and fuses modern, postmodern, and neoclassical approaches to staging artistic works, as well as digimodernism, discussed by Alan Kirby. In postmodernism, one read, watched, listened as before. Today, one phones, clicks, presses, surfs, chooses, moves, downloads. Accordingly, the dance video emerges as a new artistic medium which is different from a documentary recording or a music film, resulting in a new form of art, edited dance that does not exist outside the medium of film and/or video. My initial methodology consisted of field research and desk research in which I became acquainted with recent contemporary works, theories, and concepts relevant to my project. My methodology for the creative practice component consisted of creating an experimental dance video in which I used the recording of my original Hamlet and some other performances and existing material that I juxtaposed against new material choreographed and recorded by myself and my associates, allowing space for postmodern features such as aleatoric content, synchronicity, eclecticism, serendipity, etc. That way, we established communication on a receptive reader-response basis, thus blending the role of the spectator and the author. I blended in the newly recorded material and juxtaposed our different approaches, editing the content and structure, that way transforming my original Hamlet into Hamlet Revisited, based on my experience, but also on the experience of the performers who begin in the role of the audience, observing video of the original ballet, and transform into the role of the choreographer-performer. By blending the roles of the choreographer, performer, and spectator, I hope I have created an original work of art whose significance lies in the relationship and communication between styles, old and new choreographic approaches, artists and audiences, and the transformation of their traditional roles and relationships. I argue that the postmodern choreographers prefer the formalistic mode of choreographing and deconstruct the topics they deal with and demand an adaptation, modernization, and even departure from the literary text. However, in Hamlet Revisited, the eclectic combination of the old and new material and the constant oscillation of different discourses upon the same topic resulted in a transmodern integrationist recent work of art. It may be argued that my research proves that the postmodernists' prescriptive way of creating a work can be applied to the rereading or reinterpreting and transforming recorded ballet works. Some of the key postmodern concepts and techniques used are intertextuality. is implemented not just as a tool for the analysis, but also for the creation of this multi-layered work that is conceived as the writerly text, open to multiple interpretations, that is connected to the concept of deconstruction. Deconstruction reveals the underlying multiple layers of the performance and puts equal significance on the already said and the not yet said, emphasizing its process-driven and open-ended feature. Diffuse authorship proves to be a concept that enhances the possibility of reconsidering existing monolithic or readerly texts. My associates and I selected this approach on a reader response basis, but other options are open for further exploration. It is connected with the concept of the carnival, which accentuates the blurring of the boundaries between the spectator and the performer, as well as the concept of rhizome by Deleuze and Guattari, where there is not just one root or source, in this case, text source. Supplement refers to the additional choreographic and documentaristic video material. In a way, I deconstructed ballet Hamlet and rebuilt it, creating what Derrida calls supplement, resulting in an open-ended work of art, suitable for additional supplementation. Death of the author is used to question my role as the author, drawing on Derrida and Foucault, positioning myself as the editor of various intertexts, emphasizing the notion of the plurality of self by postmodern techniques such as fragmentation, repetition, and avoidance of a singular narrative, which I used to depict the fragmented consciousness of Hamlet as a character, but also the author-spectator. This plurality of self is apparent in my work. If the first self is the dancer and the choreographer of the ballet Hamlet, the second self is the more mature artist who edits all previously mentioned intertexts, including self-references into Hamlet Revisited. And the third self, according to Foucault, would be the one that speaks to tell the work's meaning, the obstacles encountered, the results obtained, and the remaining problems. Irony. I have used slight doses of irony and a touch of humor, especially in the frame with my childhood pictures, to avoid too much pathos and nostalgia. The undermining of autobiographical veracity is in accordance with the postmodern questioning of grand narratives. Hence, what seems to be the autobiographical part of the work is in fact something else. It is my effort to illuminate the process in the artist's head when dealing with narrative works, when self-identification with the main character is almost inevitable, especially if you are also playing the role. Self-reflexivity is evident in the inserted autobiographical elements, thus personalizing Shakespeare's ontological themes in accordance with the postmodern condition of incredulity towards grand narratives. Incredulity towards grand narratives, after Lyotard, emphasizes the importance of particulars as opposed to universals, in this case by involving individual experience. Mirror. Three aspects of the concept of the mirror were applied: theater as a metaphorical mirror, a real mirror as a set element, and the video that can serve as a time-transcending mirror. Lacan uses the play Hamlet to discuss the relationship between the ego and its ideal image in the mirror. Armstrong claims that the moment of identification threatens always to replace the ego with its own image or representation. According to Armstrong, Hamlet, in eventually fighting his ego ideal, effects his own death. Schizoanalysis. From Freud's psychoanalysis through Jung's archetypes, Hamlet Revisited arrived at the concept of schizoanalysis proposed by Deleuze and Guattari. If it may be argued that Freud's Oedipal reading of Hamlet provides a viewpoint on the relationship with his mother, father, and uncle, then Jung's concept of archetypes encompasses a greater variety of characters. While Freud explored the individual unconscious, Jung investigated the collective unconscious. In Hamlet Revisited, I also used their psychoanalytical concept as tools for interrogating the parent-child relationship relevant to Hamlet, combining it with postmodern lines of thought such as the schizoanalysis of Deleuze and Guattari. Their concept of schizoanalysis rejects Freud's concept of the family triangle to avoid the repression and restraint of the psychoanalytic interpretative framework. However, in my work, I tried to explore both ways of thinking, horizontal and vertical. So I use the traditional transcendent structure, mother, father, child, to search for the causes of present outcomes in childhood. In other words, in one's roots. Therefore, through a series of photographs, I try to refer to some of the main themes in Hamlet: love towards the mother, inability to take over the place of the father, to step in his shoes, an unsuccessful love relationship, expression through art, as well as a weapon in my hands with all the connotations it carries. You will see it a little bit later. Video dancing body. In the video material, I played with images of the anatomy of the dancer to show what is under the surface of the body as a deconstructed instrument, juxtaposing it with images of literary texts, music and dance notation sheets that are not used literally, but as signs of the process in which dance is created. The human body is at the same time an instrument and a performer whose dance is defined by music and choreographic structures, but also by his/her body predispositions and artistic talent. While Levinson saw dancers as machines for manufacturing beauty, Deleuze and Guattari conceive of human beings as desiring machines. This concept denies the idea that the person is to be found inside the body, composed of autonomous, self-sustaining, and organized internal forms. Instead, it suggests the notion that the person body is interconnected, exterior, open, multiple, fragmented, provisional, and interpenetrated by other entities. Today's eclectic repertoire demands a new type of body that Foster calls the hired body. It is a body trained to make a living in dancing. What is of utmost importance for my work is the notion following the hired body, the video dancing body that is often constructed from the edited tapes of dance movement. Simultaneity was used to achieve communication between various styles and approaches. I argue, drawing on Foster, that regarding choreographic syntax, Hamlet worked on the principle of mimesis and pathos, while Hamlet Revisited includes parataxis. Different intertexts were put together in juxtaposition, some of which were put randomly to allow space for coincidence and serendipity. The others were blended together carefully, trying to achieve communication between the old and the new approach to some of Shakespeare's themes, such as love, grief, remorse, lust, or to put the new material as an artistic commentary of the old one, departing from Shakespeare and character depiction. Dance video. It may be argued that this all corresponds with the digital age and the concept of digimodernism. Dance video emerges as a new artistic medium which is different from a documentary recording or a music film, resulting in a new form of art, edited dance that does not exist outside the medium of film and/or video. This research has shown that some of the problems present in staged neoclassical ballets can more easily be solved through the medium of dance video. Techniques such as reverse motion can be used to achieve traveling through time. Multiplication of images, slow motion, split screen, and freeze frame were used in an attempt to illuminate what is occurring in one's mind, while overlaying X-rays presented the inside of a dancing body. Additionally, computer techniques such as image scratching was used to emphasize that although it is a process-driven work of art, it is not a documentary or an archival video. It is present only in the virtual world of the medium. That way, somehow metaphorically imagined as a simulacrum, drawing on Foster. Finally, I offer analysis on two levels. I combine a semiotic structural analysis based on description, interpretation, and self-evaluation with an intertextual analysis to complement self-explanatory elements with a more objective stance in the examination of the project. The first level is a structuralist semiotic analysis in which both works, Hamlet and Hamlet Revisited, are subjected to a traditional analysis that contains description. Explanations of my authorial intentions follow with a short self-evaluation. The second level takes into consideration the dance text as an open construction, containing the fluency and enigmatic quality of art, and leaves the interpretive position open. Such an intertextual approach is woven like a thread throughout the exegesis to give a more objective stance to examine my project and possible constructions of meaning that can differ from my original intentions, moving from strict relationships between signs to a multiplication of signifiers, combining structural, semiotic, and intertextual analysis. The complete article on the subject has been published in Journal Monitor in December 2021. Journal for the Humanities and Social Sciences Monitor has been published by Alma Mater Europaea Institutum Studiorum Humanitatis since 2001. Its aim is to publish articles pertinent to the fields of the humanities and social sciences, from anthropology to linguistics. The journal publishes articles by professors and students researching a diverse range of topics in various disciplines. This edition, published in December 2021, offers a thematic block dedicated to contemporary dance and video and the changes that digitalization has brought into the traditional arts. The journal is available at this link, so if you are interested, please be so kind and read the complete article if you are interested. So, thank you very much. In the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to share several video clips from this project. They are taken out of the context, but I hope you will get the general idea. Thank you very much. So this is just bibliography. Okay, this was...
excuse me, dear Svebor, no more than 10 minutes, okay?
Yes, okay, but okay, I really need to show you this to understand what is it about. So let me quickly share.
be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub, for in that sleep of death what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause.
To be or not to be, to be or not to be, to be or not to be, to be or not to be.
The proud man's contumely, the pangs of disprized love, the law's delay, the insolence of offers and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin. Who would fardels bear, to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have, than fly to others that we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprise of great pitch and moment, with this regard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action.
Okay, thank you very much. I apologize for a couple of minutes more, but I couldn't stop it in the middle of the soliloquium. I hope you survived this, and we can discuss it later. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. At the very end, we shall have the questions.
Okay, we continue our colloquium with the second speaker. Before I give the platform to the speaker, I would like to welcome the Vice President of the European Academy of Science and Arts, Professor Birgit Harris, who is with us. Professor Grigoris Tsokas is serving at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki in Greece. He is an executive editor of the journal Archaeological Prospection, head of the Department of Geophysics, and director of the Laboratory for Exploration Geophysics at the University of Thessaloniki. His research interests include development of archaeological prospection data acquisition, processing and interpretation techniques, potential fields theory and practice, and complex attributes analysis in exploration geophysics, and he has conducted more than 350 surveys in archaeological sites to locate, buried antiquities in Greece and abroad. He's the author of more than 200 papers and awarded several international distinctions. Actually, Grigoris is considered as one of the leading scientists in the discipline of archaeological prospection. For those who may not are acquainted with this term, it is the use of physical methods and instrumentation to detect buried antiquities underground, ruins, or under the sea, through electrical, magnetic, radar, signal processing, etc. So it helps very much, this technique, to locate the buried antiquities, ruins, and then the archaeologist, the excavator, finishes his job. Excavates and unearths the finding, instead of going looking for where could be a possible buried antiquity by excavating, which requires a lot of labor, time, and money. So this, in this discipline, Grigoris is considered one leader, I could say, contributing with innovative approaches, not only applications, to subsurface tomographic imaging by new algorithms, and also the introduction of contact electrodes for urban surveying, and surveying in the walls, in floors, in ceilings of standing monuments, and not only. He has introduced the so-called inversion filtering for the rectification of the magnetic signal and the exploitation of complex attributes analysis of the magnetic signal for inferring source properties. He has introduced the use of wavelet transform and edge mapping functions in archaeological prospection and studied the attitude of the noises encountered in trivial surveys. He is currently involved in the development of image fusion methods. He has been awarded the national prizes for his innovative work as the best work on the electrical methods of exploration geophysics for the year 1997, or the best paper of the 7th International Conference of Archaeological Prospection in 2007, and the best paper also presented in the 8th International Conference on Archaeological Prospection in Paris, 2009. Grigoris is a long-life friend of mine and colleague, and I'm happy that he has been approved recently member of the Academy in class 4, and I'm pleased to present him to you. Grigoris, the online platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, dear Ioannis. Good evening, dear colleagues. I'm sharing my screen now, so you have a very good view of my screen. The topic of my talk today is the advancements in geophysical prospection, or the so-called archaeological prospection, and also I'm going to show you some case studies, mainly from Greece. Okay, the use of methods and techniques in science was established long ago, actually in the decade of the 50s, in the University of Oxford. And at that time, the first method ever used in archaeology was a method of geophysical prospecting. In other words, a well-established discipline of science, the exploration geophysics, which was employed so far up to the decade of 50s for hydrocarbon mainly exploration and mineral exploration, or assessing water resources or searching for water, whatever. At that time, it was due to the pioneering work of an archaeologist whose name was Atkinson, and of a physicist whose name was Martin Aitken, who died actually 3 years ago. But at that time, he had the idea of adapting these methods that were employed so far for other implementations in order to locate and map buried antiquities. Actually, the first method ever used in archaeology, method of science, was a method of exploration geophysics, was resistance mapping. I will show you some examples later on. Of course, Martin Aitken expanded the context of his laboratory and involved methods of physics also for dating, for provenience studies, and so on. He named all this new discipline as archaeophysics, but I learned it from Ioannis Liritzis that in a tea break, actually a professor of European history proposed him the name archaeometry, which is a Greek word, but not really a Greek word, not a word of the speaking of the fluent Greek now, but is actually a combination of two ancient Greek words of archaeology and measurement, something like that, in order to name the new discipline. Okay, the idea seemed at that time very nice to Martin Aitken, so he adopted the idea and he named the new discipline as archaeometry. I repeat it emphatically that the first method ever used in archaeometry was geophysical mapping, in particular resistance mapping. Okay, what are the tasks of archaeological geophysics. First of all, to detect and map buried antiquities. And this can be applied either to systematic or to rescue excavation. But as time goes by, it was discovered that the same techniques can be used to tackle specific problems, mostly related to cultural heritage protection and preservation. I will show you later on what I mean exactly. Let's come back to the primary task. The primary task is to map, if possible, the buried antiquities, and if possible also to present at the end the measured geophysical field in a form that resembles the ground view of the measured antiquities, of the subsurface antiquities, of the concealed antiquities in the subsurface. In other words, we have the vestiges of once upon a time buildings that are buried in the subsurface. And we want to have a ground view of these vestiges. What I'm showing here is a distribution of resistivity of the subsurface, but it has been transformed mathematically in a way that shows more or less like the ground view of the concealed antiquities, like the ground view that could have been drawn if an excavation had taken place and somebody came afterwards and photographed the ruins, or a balloon flew, or a drone flew, or something, and we have an aerial picture of the antiquities, or a drawing of the antiquities. We can see here, for example, the ground view of the buried antiquities in place in a site, an archaeological site near Sparta. This is the acceptable result of a survey, of a geophysical survey. Also, this result has another context that is not easily seen. It comprises also legal evidence in the court if, say, we have the case of expropriation of lands. In other words, the archaeologists or the state authorities can present this picture to the courts and claim the expropriation of the land. This is actually has been incorporated in the British, the French, the German, and the Greek, and the Italian legislation. This is another view of these geophysical images as legal evidences in the court. We can see, for instance, for this example, here, let's talk for this bit of land, that we have the ground view of the antiquities. You can see the actual antiquities that have been unearthed after the excavation and the geophysical image before. You can see that this the black lines represent the vestiges of the buried ruins. The buried vestiges, sorry. Also, you can see the edges of the trench in reality and the edges of the trench here on the geophysical drawing. Okay, nevertheless, we have specific applications of the geophysical methods. A specific task is to image the interior of tumuli and see if there are structures concealed in there. You understand that usually we have monumental tombs that are concealed in tumuli, and usually they bear precious findings. Another application, and I will talk as my lecture proceeds, that is to find the waterways, in other words, how the water drains through archaeological sites and monuments. The particular example is from the Acropolis of Athens. We have mapped the waterways from the top of the hill downhill. Also, particular task is to study the subsurface of monuments and see if there are potential threats for the integrity of the monuments. For instance, if there is a danger from landslides, soil instability, liquid functions, the earthquake hazard, and so on. Also, another particular task is to locate buried antiquities beneath others, or explore within standing monuments, say, for instance, to locate crypts if they exist, or to locate tombs in churches, and so on. To perform a survey in urban environment is always a challenge, and sometimes it involves a certain degree of innovacy in there. Also, a very modern task is to assess the moisture conditions in walls and ceilings of standing monuments, as the example is here. Anyway, I'm coming back to the methods. I try to avoid mathematics, and I have pure physics and pure results. Also, I have avoided all the processing and visualization methods, and which are particularly mathematical methods. So you are going to see how we collect the data and the result. So the in-between, procedure has been neglected in my lecture. Okay, magnetic mapping. Magnetic mapping, is to record the Earth's magnetic field in great spatial detail and also in great accuracy. We can do it either with either establishing a grid on the ground surface and measuring at the nodes of the grid, or more, as we do it modernly, we know that the antiquities create fields that are superimposed on the Earth's fields, and in this context, they create anomalies. These anomalies can be recorded by our instruments, and then we can process them and present the maps at the end that show the ground view of the antiquities. Say, for instance, we have carriages like that, and we have batteries of magnetometers. Nowadays, we have GPS that facilitates our life, and we can carry out surveys swiftly and relatively in an inexpensive mode. These are guys from my lab in Thessaloniki performing a magnetic survey somewhere in Greece. Also, this is an example from Austria. These are German colleagues that are using this motorbike to transport the magnetometers, the battery of the magnetometers. And let's see some examples. You can see that the examples are spectacular sometimes. This is the Tanagra, an ancient Greek city. And this is the Roman part of the city, as shown in the magnetogram, as we say. This is a magnetogram. It is a distribution of the magnetic field, actually of the gradient of the magnetic field, but it doesn't matter. It has been converted in a way that shows the ground view of the buried antiquities. And you can see how the urban planning of the ancient city has been revealed. It's a very, very good example. Another example comes from Egypt. A Polish colleague has done this survey, and you can see what it is concealed underground. This pharaonic structure is buried under the sand, over the sand that shows from the Google Earth satellite image, and this is the magnetogram superimposed on the satellite image, and the pharaonic structure that has been clearly seen in the subsurface. Now you realize the utility of these magnetograms or resistivity distributions. The excavator can first of all schedule what he's going to do in the future. He knows very well. He can open trial trenches somewhere and then extend the conclusions all the way over. Resistance mapping, which was the first method to be ever applied in archaeology, actually involves insertion of current into the ground by means of two electrodes and measuring of the potential of the created potential difference. Okay. Again, we establish grids on the ground surface and we collect data in the manner shown in this fold. Again, we have devised light instrumentation that can be carried by one operator, as this instrument here. And the first example comes from the city that Seleucus, the most important successor of Alexander the Great, was born. I'm going to talk for Evropos, it is in Greek, Europos if I translate it in English, something like that. Anyway, it's the same root as Europe. Evropos in northern Greece, okay, homeland of Seleucus Nicator. And this is another Evropos built in Syria, again by the same guy, and the magnetogram also, and the excavation, actually the antiquities that are visible now. You can see that the ground view of the antiquities that are visible now, and also the magnetogram inside Dura Evropos, founded by Seleucus Nicator. Seleucus was a great guy, actually, because he founded about 30 cities, among them Antioch, to honor his father, Antiochus. Anyway, let's move again to his homeland, which is close to the city where I'm based, close to Thessaloniki. Seleucus was born, as I said before, in Evropos. Evropos nowadays is nothing. All the ruins are buried over there. Are buried the Acropolis of what was once upon a time Evropos is buried on in this topographical table over there. This is the topographical table that bears the ruins of the Acropolis of Evropos, and this is the cemetery of the Roman time that I'm going to talk about later on. We can see clearly the ruins of Evropos, of the Acropolis of Evropos here, what you can see nowadays and what it is buried underground. A very good example. And in order to have an idea of what these black lines represent, they do represent actually ruins of foundation walls over there. Let's move now to the area of the cemetery of the Roman era. You can see that we have anomalies, resistivity anomalies in the middle of nowhere over there, and we have the Blair anomaly here, which is a geological phenomenon. It has nothing to do with the tombs that are creating these anomalies over there. These are the edges of a trench that was opened, and this is a photograph of the trench. You can see the two monumental tombs that had created these two high resistivity anomalies over there, and also the topographical table of the Acropolis at the back of this photograph. Anyway, you can see that all these monumental tombs have their resistivity signature in this map, one by one. Nowadays, the area you can visit, it's accessible. It is an archaeological site that you can visit it. And you can see the ancient cemetery, the ancient monumental tombs that have been preserved and shown over there. Nowadays, we have also very modern methods to measure the resistance, the resistivity of the subsurface, not only manual driving instruments. We have mechanized instruments like this one. You can see, actually, my colleague, Dr. Michel Dabas, a French, in a survey that we did together in Greece. Anyway, these systems make our life easier nowadays. And there's no need for establishing grids on the ground surface. We have the GPS that gives the reference. Anyway, what can the geophysical maps provide? Why we do it? First of all, we may have the full urban organization of the ancient city and the city planning. We may recognize either on the magnetogram or on the resistivity maps the location and the functional public buildings of the ancient city. We may also recognize the size of insulae and dwelling units of the ancient city. We may see possible extension of the city. We may provide clues in addressing archaeological and historical queries sometimes. Of course, definite conclusions are yielded by combination of geophysics and other remote sensing technologies, and finally, truthing by excavation. The final proof is the excavation. Some examples: an important construction of the ancient city of Eretria, close to Athens, is a paradromis, is a training corridor by the ancient theater. This is an example of how we recognize important constructions of the ancient city. For instance, the islet of Mitru over there, and a very large building that it is shown on the magnetogram, may be a Bronze Age megaron. Also, we may see the system of roads of the ancient city, as the case of Helis in Peloponnese here. You can see clearly the road leading to the ancient theater over there, and also roads leading out of the city. Another example from Thrace, the northeastern compartment of Greece. You can see the ruins of an ancient city that are buried underground, and you can recognize the insula over there, and you can see the size of the insula. Actually, the size of the insula shows that we have a very healthy society and a rich society. Also, we may address historical issues. We know, for instance, that the geophysical result from Molivoti shows that it was a big city there, and archaeological questions have been raised regarding to whether this city was Maronia, was the early Maronia, because we know that Maronia was a very large ancient urban complex. And the geophysical research shows that maybe Maronia was not there, but there was only the Hellenistic and Roman Maronia. The former Maronia, maybe it was here, because it's a very big city over there. Another example is from Inore, northwest of Athens, where we can see the extension of the city. We can see the ruins of the ancient wall here, okay, provoking an extension of the city. Another method that we have, now I'm moving from the mapping methods to the methods that we have to do both mapping, but a bit more difficultly, and also to treat specific problems, other specific problems. Ground penetrating radar is the same context of the radar that we have in the air. We emit electromagnetic pulses in the ground, and we record in a receiver the signal that comes back. Okay, the context is like that. How we move on the ground surface, and how we image the subsurface employing the so-called ground penetrating radar. Okay, again, we have transects. We move along transects, as I showed before. And then we go forth and back, and so on. So we have at the end many transects. So we have a volume of data. We may cut slices and we may have slices presented in the way that we are well acquainted to, in a way that shows the ground view of the buried antiquities, like this one. Also, we may play a game here. We can show the slices one after the other, like a movie, and have also the essence of the sense of the depth, because the antiquities are shown at some particular depth. Okay, let's see another example. Demetrias, a city founded by Demetrius Peleorkites. And this is a ground penetrating radar consisting actually of 8 simple systems. It's a complex system, this one. And you can see the result, which is close to what I have shown before. Again, a ground view of the antiquities of one part of what was once upon a time Dimitrias. Okay, let's move to the tunnel of Eftalinos in the island of Samos. This is a masterpiece of ancient Greek engineering because it was carved from both ends. It's very difficult. Actually, it was the first ever and the first ever reported in the mankind tunnel that was opened from both ends, and they had a meeting point at the center. And okay, this way of digging was certainly revolutionary for that time, and it is definitely even with nowadays standards, because Espalinos started digging from both entrances, from both edges, the tunnel, and the meeting point was at the center. You can see here that the engineer had made actually correcting movements, because it's not a straight line. He had corrected the course of the tunnel, and also realized that it is about 170 meters of solid mass, of solid rock over the tunnel over there. That's why it was a very difficult task for that time. Here it's me, once upon a time, and my colleague from Korea, measuring at the lining of the tunnel of the Palinos, and our task was to see the thickness of the lining. We had several calibration points, and at the end, this is a radargram, as we call the plots of the ground penetrating radar, that shows, and we have marked with a red pen over there, the backside of the lining in Eupalinian tunnel. Another example, a very recent one also, is from the Acropolis of Thessaloniki, the city that I live over here. This is the city wall of Thessaloniki. It was a very big city. It was the biggest city of the Byzantine and the Ottoman Empire, the second biggest city after Constantinople. So our task was to explore the walls of one of the towers over there and see the impregnation of moisture. Before doing that, we had performed simulation studies, modeling, in other words. This is a model. We modeled the wall and see if we have absorption of the ground penetrating radar energy as it is inserted in the wall. You can see that this is a slice of the wall. Actually, it is a horizontal slice of the wall. And this is the radargram, again, a horizontal radargram. Clearly, when we have moisture, when the moisture impregnates the masonry, as here, we have loss of the signal. As I said before, this is a model study, okay, a simulation. In reality, the reality is here. Okay, this is a real line, and you can see that we have indeed loss of the signal over there. And we have a very good picture of the inside of the wall. and also some surprise because we have another wall behind. In other words, what we see today is a retaining wall. It is a reinforcing wall that was built probably during the late Byzantine or the Ottoman times. The real wall of the tower is inside. And of course, we may see it in 3 dimensions and make games. Another example from a monument in the area over there, a standing monument. You can see the walls of the monument. It is a bath, okay, and we have investigated the walls of the monument, again with ground penetrating radar, and imaged the ventilation system. This was a very important parameter for the restoration of the bath. Okay, you can see the whole bath here and the ventilation shafts that are concealed in the walls over there. Of course, there are other structures and failures in the wall that have been detected by this ground penetrating radar survey. The resistivity tomography, a very modern technique. My lab has been involved from the early beginning and had a lot to do with the advancement of this method. This is the context is exactly like the medical tomography. What a doctor does in the human body, we do it on the ground surface and trying to image the subsurface. The context is exactly the same. Okay, we have data collection, which is really a tricky job to do it because we establish a line of electrodes on the ground surface and we insert current in 2 electrodes and we'll measure all the possible potential differences. Then we move to other two electrodes and we do the same. So at the end, we have a large number of measurements and we have this image that is called pseudo section, and then by mathematics we transfer it into an image that resembles that shows the distribution of resistivity in the subsurface. This is a tomography of the subsurface, a kind of imaging, and of course we interpret that and we have exactly the structure of the subsurface. Let's see an example in the 3 dimensions, again in the island of Mitru. 2 tomographic transects. Of course, many tomographic transects were established on the ground surface. And this is imaging, 3-dimensional imaging of the subsurface. To have an idea, this is the finding after the excavation. It's not far away. Okay, this is imaging of this finding. Okay, let's put it like that, but before the excavation. Okay. Advancing, as I said before, we tried and we found ways of performing electrical resistivity tomographies in urban environment and particularly within standing monuments. This is a very well-known monument in the center of Athens. This is Kapnikarea Church, 11th century. It has very nice pictures inside. And it is exactly in the center of the commercial street of Athens. Okay, and we have devised this kind of electrodes. We call them flat-based electrodes, and with some material in order to establish the coupling, the electrical coupling with the ground, and not to damage, not to hurt the monument. Also, this is a slice at some depth showing that we have resistive structures in the subsurface, and these are boreholes that were drilled to verify if these structures exist and what they are. What was found is that these structures were ancient wells, like the well that it is still opened in the altar area of the church. This is an ancient well over there, and these also are wells, and the wells comprise potential threats for the metro tunnel that goes exactly 70 meters beneath the church. The survey was done not really for detecting antiquities in the archaeological context, but in the engineering context, to see if wells exist in the church, because the wells would damage the tunnel, the metro tunnel that was built at that time. And of course, these tunnels, these wells also constitute potential threats for the monument. That's why the wells were completed, filled with gunite, cement with iron, in order to stabilize the subsurface of the church. And of course, the metro tunnel. Again, imagine the foundations of the Thessaloniki wall, the city where I live, in a bit innovative way. Okay, these are tomographic transects that we carried out once upon a time. Also, we have this kind of electrodes, of bentonite electrodes that we invented. It was a development of the flat base electrodes that you have seen in the Kapnikarea in Athens, and also a classic electrode, a classical one, a metal stick, simply. Okay, this is a flat base electrode, and we had these are images of the subsurface that show very well the wall of Constantine the Great here, and the wall of Theodosius inside. Theodosius the Great also, because Thessaloniki has two walls, one built by Constantine the Great and the other one during the Byzantine times by Theodosius. Also, we tried for first time ever, to have the geophysical tomography in the cross-hole context. We opened we drilled actually from both sides of the wall, and we lowered this plastic roll and this aluminium ribbon that constitute the electrodes. And also we have the cables here. This is me at that time. And here is the result of the cross-hole tomography. As I said before, this was very innovative for that time. It was first time in the world that something was done like that. Okay, another also in an Ottoman monument in Thessaloniki, a mosque. Again, we drilled boreholes and we did resistivity tomography, cross-hole resistivity tomography. Again, we imaged clearly the foundation of the wall. Moving now to the Acropolis of Athens, which was a very difficult task, and the task was to see how the water goes through the wall, because we know that the water drains through the wall. We have areas of increased moisture over there. We know that the wall of Athens, of the Acropolis of Athens, suffers. It moves actually 1 centimeter per year. And actually, we performed tomographies in this context, as it is shown in this fold. We used the block of the excavation done at the 19th century in order to have tomographies in the shape of the Greek letter pi, capital pi, and also tomographies in this context, on the wall and on the ground surface. We used the climbers at that time in order to put the electrodes on the wall of Acropolis. You can see the electrodes on the Acropolis, and you can see also the result here. The cold colors represent low resistivities. They represent the water as it drains. Actually, it is the tomography K9 over there. Part of the tomography, this part of the tomography is on the wall, and the other part is over there on the hill of the Acropolis of Athens. And I'm coming down now to investigating the interior of tumuli. A tumulus is itself a monument, and we don't want to have to see this. We don't want to look at the monument inside, what it is buried inside, by destroying the monument. The monument has to be preserved. The tumulus itself has to be preserved. Okay, the tumulus of Apollonia in northern Greece. Apollonia is the place where the tragic poet Euripides died. And it's very close to Thessaloniki also. A huge tumulus. You can see the electrical resistivity tomographies that were performed in the radial mode over there. And now I'm going directly to the tomograms at various levels as we move up. Again, we have the tomographies as we move around. You can see that we have very clear images of the interior of the tumulus. We know very well nowadays that this resistivity feature that appears over there is a rock outcrop that was actually exploited by the ancient Greeks to erect the tumulus on top of that. But this particular tomography has various other resistive structures, and these resistive structures comprise perhaps ancient monuments, okay, monumental tombs. In particular, this one that was excavated, and a Macedonian tomb was unearthed, Macedonian type, as it is called. You can see this anomaly actually is the signature of the Macedonian tomb. The tomb here, and the anomaly that had created, and also the anomaly, the large anomaly of the travertine outcrop that it is also concealed in the interior of the tumulus, of the particular tumulus. Now, we are moving to Thessaloniki. This monument, believe it or not, is about 50 meters from my office. It's a rotunda, an excellent monument. It was built by the Emperor Galerius, the Roman Emperor Galerius, and then during the Byzantine times it was converted into a church, into a mosque when the Ottomans conquered Thessaloniki, again to a church when the city was liberated, and nowadays it is both. It is a monument, a museum, and a church for twice per year. Twice per year, actually, it is a service held in there. Okay, our task again was here, it's a bit experimental and very innovative. We tried to establish a monitoring instrument, a monitoring gear in one of the pillars, and see how the water impregnates this pillar throughout the year. We have you can see the pillar in there. This is a tomography of the pillar, an initial tomography. You can see areas of increased moisture with the presence. And now we have the establishment of a permanent array that every day performs a tomography, actually 4 tomographies at 4 levels, and transfers the data into our lab. Telemetrically, of course. Everything is done automatically. You can see that though the array is there, is very difficult to be observed by the visitors. And of course, we still study this case every day. And of course, we monitor the weather also, in particular the precipitation rate every day, and try to see how it influences the moisture that in the pillar. Okay, another result of our experiments. As I said before, so far, you know very well now that we have many ways to explore the subsurface. Okay, we have resistance mapping, we have magnetic mapping, we have ground penetrating radar, we have electromagnetic mapping. Sometimes I didn't talk about this, but we do have it. You all know a very simple a very simple implementation of this method is the well-known metal detector. We have aerial photographs and all this. Now, the question was how we can combine all them mathematically, and how we can infer the useful information that bears the result of each one of these methods separately, and combine them and combine it in one image at the end. Okay, let me explain this context. Let's have an example from the photograph, from photography. This is a simple photograph in the visible spectrum. You can see clearly the fence here and the roof. Okay, if the photograph was infrared, we would have seen the man that it is concealed behind these bushes. Okay, the fusion is the art of putting all this together, all the useful information that it is concealed in this photograph and in that photograph in one. Okay, the final one, the fusion of these two, shows clearly the fence and the man over there. Okay, it's a pure mathematical task. I will not bother you about this. Let's move to Philippi in northern Greece. You know, of course, what Shakespeare said in Julius Caesar. I will see thee in Philippi then. Okay, when Brutus, the ghost of Brutus, the ghost of Caesar appears to Brutus and says, I will see you in Philippi. Okay, let's see in Philippi what it is over there. In Philippi, in one part of Philippi, we have the magnetic measurement, we have the resistance measurement, we have the near-infrared aerial photograph. Okay, how we can combine on this? We may combine them by two. We may combine them, and we did it all together in order to have a superior result over there. You can see that this image is superior because, for instance, this building is not seen in the resistance map, but it is in the final map. Also here, the dwelling units, the ruins of the dwelling units that are concealed in the subsurface at this particular bit are very clearly seen at the fused image. Okay, with this, I want to thank you for your attention, and I'm open to any question you may pose. Thank you very much for attending my lecture.
Thank you, Grigoris. Thank you very much for your excellent illuminating lecture, and questions will follow. First of all, I have to ask Violeta to invite any question for the first speaker.
Thank you very much. It's also so exciting all the time what happens here. Please, do you have some questions or remarks for the first lecturer, Svebor Sečak?
Okay, I think we don't have much time anymore. So we spent a lot of time. So if I can briefly explain something, I'm at your disposal. But as I said before, today I'm 60. I have to celebrate. Come on, people.
You have to celebrate your birthday. Wonderful.
Yes.
I have myself a question, short one. It's so fascinating now to see what is possible with the technical new instruments we have. I just want to ask you if you also work on the possibility to notation like a score of the choreography. Nijinsky was the first one who began. And I remember some years ago, I was in Chisinau and I saw choreography which was 120 years old, continue to be, but just because they kept it in the repertoire. But
yes,
did you think about such? Because
yes,
it's possible to see, but to notate?
Yes, there are possibilities to notate. There is Laban notation and Benish notation. But it is not as easy as for music, because every musician is capable of notating or reading the music.
No, I mean only the movements, not the music.
Yes, I'm speaking about it. So there is Benish and Laban notation, but it is much more difficult than notation for music. So only highly specialized people, trained and very well paid, are capable of notating the movement. There is a history of that. from the very beginning, there were so-called foyer Beauchamp notation for the first court dances. Then during imperial period in Russia, they had Stepanov notation. And that's how we saved some of the ballets from the imperial period, because with Russian emigration, they took also that notation with themselves. So 10 or 20 years ago, they restaged the Sleeping Beauty as was in the original at the end of 19th century, thanks to this notation. And today we have notation by Laban that is more convenient to every common movement, and Benesch that is more convenient for dancing. But as I said,
do you use such notations, or you use only the visual instruments?
Look, sometimes we use some of the basics, like for example, how the people are standing on the stage, formations, etc. But to really be able to notate complete performance, there are only few people on the world, and they are very, very well paid, you know.
Yeah, and ethnomusicologists they have a special notation for traditional dances, which is very important. Otherwise, they are just disappearing. Thank you very much.
Yes, because you know, when you film or when you shoot a video of a documentaristic video of a performance, it is still not as exact as notation, because notation is one thing and performance is the other. So on video, you see someone's performance. You don't see exact choreography. You don't know whether it is exact choreography or it's just performance of an artist, you know. So that's why notation is very, very important.
Wonderful. So we have also an information from the chat of Menachem Zur to everybody. There is also Eshkol notation. I never heard about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to ask something of Violeta. I think today we heard, you know, two very interesting and connected, I could say, interconnected talks. One is with digital methods, digitalization generally in music and ballet, which has philosophical, psychological, artistic directions and implications. And on the other hand, also we heard about the digitalization, again, digital methods, physical methods in archaeology, which is for the study of the past, and also benefit of the results. You know, we benefit from the sustainability point of view of our society. What I would like to, I can see in the first presentation in the ballet of Hamlet, you know, in the age of digimodernism, you know, is an expected, I would say, development, not only Hamlet, but, you know, in an evolving world, and in science and technology. And such a turn introduces inevitably this new status of adaptation. So, although there has been a traditionally a resistance to the study of adaptations, and I would like the opinion of Svebor, adaptation studies as a subsection, I could say, of intertextuality currently has a very significant place in the academic debates. As T.S. Eliot has said, you know, Hamlet is like the Mona Lisa of literature. So the context of revisiting Hamlet, you know, of the revisiting Hamlet in the context of mythology, adaptation, new technologies, and that, you know, adaptation also is appropriate into and by various cultural contexts. And I would like to have, you know, to know your opinion about how all this, you know, creation that of this revisit, you know, it is implemented, and what is the consequences in a cultural context. And in fact, my question would be, I wonder if the inclusion of old classic tragedies like Hamlet, or also Greek tragedies, in an evolving society, in this evolving cultural codex, using technological tools, new technological tools, is permissible. I mean, and what extent could be permissible? Or such an inclusion of all classic tragedies must retain, for example, original elements, and any newer comparable tragedy emerges as a new contemporary play with transmitting messages of modern times. I'm a bit wondering, what you would say about that. Thank you.
Well, that's why classics are classics, because they are supposed to live forever and to have impact on modern thought, So all the contemporary performances, either digital or not digital, can be perceived as a substitution or a surrogation of the ancient model. So you can build on, for example, Hamlet or some classical tragedy or whatever. You can build forever, because that's why they are classics, because the feelings of love, remorse, ontological themes, that will be always interesting for every generation. So when you transform it in a new media, you just put it in another way, but you play with the same ideas, with the same ontological themes. So regarding intertextual approach, it is very important to avoid plagiarism. So it's very important to have clear references on your intertextual approach. This is maybe the biggest problem nowadays when we are able to use digital media. But I think that whatever happens in future, there will always be either Hamlet or Othello or Romeo and Juliet in new versions, So it is inevitable, and that's why we call them classics, I think.
Thank you very much, Svebor.
Thank you.
So shall we move to the next speaker? Any question for Grigoris Tsokas? No? Violeta?
In fact, I was just thinking also about the correspondence between these two lectures, because in fact, every moment, the moment of the choreographical moment is disappearing. So we have to have the possibility to maintain this. And but on the other hand, what Grigoris showed us is how is it possible to go such a long time, and it's so incredible. I was feeling it's like magic, and we have this possibility now. I think I didn't understand so fantastic, but it is so inspiring to see the possibility to discover the precise discover so many years, and all this is the roots of Greek roots, who are in fact the roots of the culture, of our culture in Europe. Thank you so much. I don't have any other question that I would like to discover more and more. It was also very, I think the musicians among us could also say that all these images have an artistic quality, that aesthetical quality, and it is some of them possible, almost all of them, it's possible to read them like scores. And it is really possible, because beginning with the second part of the 20th century, composers began also to create such visual scores in which it's possible just to improvising in fact with the substance of a composition. So I was very happy you had this idea to invite Grigoris. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, Violeta is a famous composer. It is the dean, of class 3 of our academy, and she has the ability to, from looking at some images and results of from the physical world, she's capable to produce a music. Actually, we had an example recently that I initiated, I triggered, I challenged her, a calling from University of Thessaloniki too, Kyriakos Eustathiou, that the Antikythera mechanism, this complex, early computer, the 2nd century BC, with the complicated, operation, and Violeta, heard many times, about this functioning of the apparatus, and with personal also communication with Kyriakos, she finally managed to compose a music. It's related, with the operation of the Antikythera mechanism. So you have now, there's another trigger, with what you saw today with these nice images, symmetrical images of underground, adequacy. You can have some, to compose some.
Yeah, it's in fact the function of our meeting is because we can go in YouTube, we can see what happens in the world, but we have here the possibility to, it is in fact what Grigoris also said, meeting spaces, and it is not only my story, there are such stories between correspondences between our public, which is not only a public, it's belonging to us. So thank you very much. And the first time today that I looked in the chat, mea culpa, I didn't look until now. So we have also the possibility to communicate by chat when somebody has to. So thank you so much, Ioannis,
thank you
for doing this with us. So.
Yes, okay. From Violeta and myself, Violeta, we thank you for your participation. We look forward for the next fortnight, and then our next, meeting, and have a nice time. Take care, and see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ciao.